Coming up on the GCN Racing News Show, we'll wrap up another thrilling stage race in France at the Tour des Alpes Maritimes du Var. We'll look back at the first couple of stages of the UAE Tour to see how the big guns are getting on there. Jeremy will wrap up the cyclocross season for us, and I'll have all the other racing related news too. This week in the world of racing, we learnt that Bauke Mollema, whilst a lot more talented than the rest of us, is not immune to some rookie mistakes.
Here is Bottlegate again, pulls it off, explodes into his face, and the Dutchman, well, he'll rue that day because that's going to be a gif and a meme for a long time to come.
We also learnt that Chris Froome has invented a new position to circumvent the new UCI rules, which is called the pinky grab. Not sure if that one's going to catch on. Now, on a more serious note, we learnt last week what it takes to win an uphill sprint in a peloton full of stars. 522 watts for 2 minutes and 35 seconds at 62 kilograms was what Mike Rusty Woods produced to win stage 2 of the race in front of Mollema with a peak 1 minute of 590 watts. All that came at the end of a very tough 170k stage at the Tour des Alpes Maritimes du Var. Ouch. With that effort, Woods not only took his and his new team's first win of the year, but also the overall race lead and yellow jersey from Mollema, who'd given Trek Segafredo their first win of the season on the previous day. Just 1 second separated them as they went into the crucial final stage yesterday, and the toughest stage of them all in fact. 131 kilometres the distance, but barely a metre of flat, and 3 first category climbs, including the famous Col de la Madone. Now, a strong break went up the road early doors, including Giro d'Italia winner Theo Gegenhardt for Ineos Grenadiers, Gianluca Brambilla of Trek Segafredo, and crucially, 3 riders from Groupama FDJ. Armirail, who had to be man of the match on the day, Valentin Madouas and Rudy Mollard. And between them, they made life very difficult for the Israel startup nation to control things behind them, and also ensure that they still held on to a 2-minute advantage as they hit the foot of the Col de la Madone. On that particular climb, Mike Woods looked fantastic. He was the best of what was a very select group by that point, which also included Nairo Quintana, Jakob Fuglsang and Bauke Mollema. But try as he might, he just wasn't able to completely close the gap to Brambilla, who was looking incredibly strong at the front of the race. Now, to give you an idea of the sort of pace that they went up the Col de la Madone, Ben O'Connor of AG2R's Strava file shows that he averaged just under 400 watts for 25 minutes and 55 seconds. And for the final 2.4 kilometres, David Gaudu of Groupama FDJ was the 3rd fastest ever on Strava, equal on time in fact with Tadej Pogačar. The level at the race was extremely high, have no doubt about that. Back to the race though, and I've got to say, hats off to Gianluca Brambilla. I mean, it's been quite a long time since he won a pro bike race, over 4 years in fact, but the way he did it yesterday was not only exciting to watch, he also did it with what looked to be a smile on his face at all times. Might have been a grimace, but I'm going to take it as a smile. And of course, not only did he win the stage, but he also had enough time over Woods as he crossed the finish line to take the general classification by 5 seconds too. Extremely disappointing for Woods. The Canadian was no doubt the strongest rider in that race, but as we as bike racing fans all know, the strongest rider does not always win, which I guess is one of the most fascinating things about racing, even if it must be hugely disappointing if you are the strongest rider in the race. I wouldn't know, of course. Right, before we move on, I would just like to say a big get well soon to Mikel Flores of Arkea Samsic. He had a really bad crash on yesterday's stage and broke the top of his femur on his birthday, no less. We're all thinking of you, Mikel, and we hope to see you back on your bike very soon indeed. Now, just before we move on to the star-studded UAE Tour, I just wanted to remind you that there are now just a few days left to take advantage of our special offer on GCN Plus. A 12-month subscription with over 100 cycling films and documentaries, all the racing available in your country, and a weekly World of Cycling show, which this week has Pippa York as its guest. All that for 50% off the normal price. So that is $25, €20 or 20 quid. Now, I know some of you don't like the comparison to coffee, but that's like a takeaway coffee once every 2 months. It's a real steal, especially as we now have the rights to the biggest Italian races through RCS Sport. So by that, I mean the Giro d'Italia, the first Grand Tour of the year, Milano-Sanremo, the first Monument of the year, Strada Bianca on the gravel of course, Tirreno Adriatico, Il Lombardia and the UAE Tour on right now, and they're available in the USA, Canada and Australia and Europe, and in fact in every GCN Plus territory except for New Zealand and Latin America. And then when you add in the Giro di Sicilia, Milano Torino and Gran Piemonte, that is a total of 45 days of racing from RCS, which works out at less than 50 cents per day just for the RCS races, let alone everything else that's thrown in too. Now, your support is very much appreciated on GCN Plus, and the more support we get, the more likely we'll be able to continue with the live racing and the documentaries. One of which was our visit to Andrea Taffi for our Legends series. So the Italian won both Paris-Roubaix and the Tour of Flanders during his career, and he even contemplated a comeback just a couple of years ago. Here's a trailer for that film.
This is the face when you finish Paris-Roubaix.
That's a great photo.
Yeah.
The crowd are chanting the name Taffi, Taffi.
I like very much that race. The best race on the world.
And he has all the time in the world to enjoy what will be his finest hour.
I'm so very happy have this at my house. That's important.
Sales pitch now over. I'll come back in fact though later in the show with some more news about device compatibility, particularly when it comes to smart TVs. Now, for the small number of you who are in countries where GCN Plus is not yet available, can I please stress that we are working as hard as we can on that. It's not because we don't want to make it available where you are, of course we do, it's just that there are legal hurdles that we need to overcome before we're actually legally allowed to do that and sell our app in your country. Hopefully we'll have more good news on that for you fairly shortly. Right, we should probably get back onto the UAE Tour now, shouldn't we? It kicked off yesterday, quite literally, in fact, with some crosswind chaos right from the very beginning. So within 200 metres, the race had already split up. All hell had let loose, and I can tell you from personal experience, it would have been absolutely horrific to be anywhere in that bunch. And the numbers bear that out. So Filippo Ganna of Ineos Grenadiers' average speed for the first 25 kilometres of the race was 61 kilometres per hour on a flat road. Unbelievable. So that's 25 k's in under 25 minutes then. Alex Dowsett posted this screen grab from his Training Peaks file. So the first 10 minutes of his season, average power 413 watts with a max of over 1200 and an average speed of 62 kilometers per hour. Welcome back to racing, Alex. Things did temporarily come back together before the Koenig Quickstep then split things again, with almost their entire team in front, except, slightly strangely, their sprinter Sam Bennett. They were, though, riding for João Almeida, and very successfully so too. He took 3 bonus seconds at both the intermediate time checks, and the other main GC riders in that front group were Adam Yates, winner last year of course, and Tadej Pogačar, who took 2 bonus seconds at that second intermediate sprint. Now the sprinters who made that front group were Elia Viviani, Fernando Gaviria, who attacked near the finish, please let me know in the comments if you know why he did that, David Dekker in his first World Tour race, and Mathieu van der Poel in his first road race of the 2021 season. Now you don't need me to tell you what happened next, even if you didn't watch it. Van der Poel won it, rather convincingly, in a sprint. Now 4th place on the stage, Emil Liepins, was hitting 65 kilometers per hour in that final sprint. Van der Poel would have been a KO2 faster than that. He's a machine, isn't he? And it was certainly a more interesting day than we'd expected, or than it would have been without any wind on the day. Now, I'm sure most of you know that I'm a massive fan of crosswinds, as I was in fact when I was racing them too. But we asked for your opinion on this over on the GCN app. 54% of you said that you do prefer a good mountain stage to the crosswinds. And I have to say, I would agree, I think, but there's no doubt that made for some very entertaining viewing on the very first day of the race. Now, unfortunately, there was some bad news this morning as a member of staff from Alpes in Phoenix tested positive for COVID-19. The team then made the decision to withdraw from the UAE Tour completely, which means, of course, that Van der Poel didn't even get to defend his jersey on stage 2 and the time trial. It's unlikely, though, that he would have been able to beat world champion Filippo Ganna, who stormed around the course at an average speed of 56 kilometers per hour, finishing the stage in the lead and 14 seconds ahead of 22-year-old neo-pro Stefan Bissegger. In the general classification battle, Tadej Pogačar came out the best. He finished 4th on the stage, 6 seconds in front of João Almeida, who was 6th, and 34 seconds ahead of defending champion Adam Yates. Tadej Pogačar now leads the race going into tomorrow, which is the first of 2 mountaintop finishes, this one on the Jebel Hafid, so that is one not to miss. Right, we're going to move on to other news now because the 2020-2021 cyclocross season came to an end at the weekend. And so who better to conclude our coverage than J-Pals? Over to you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Dan. This weekend marked the final cyclocross weekend of the season, and the racing went down in St. Nicholas and in Oostmalle. Now, Mother Nature did not disappoint for this final weekend of cyclocross, people. I'm going to tell you, beautiful sunshine greeted the riders on both days. They were in shorts, short sleeves, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 16 degrees Celsius. It's a nice way to end the season. If you think back to Brussels University, just last weekend it was black ice and snow, and this weekend 60s in sunshine and dust. It was beautiful. Anyway, let's jump into the racing on Saturday. At St. Nicholas, the women's event kicked off, and it was Ava Lechner, the mountain biker racing for Star Casino, who led things out from the start. A big group would form on this super fast, scorching, ripping course. It looked like it was going to be something for the Belgian champion Sanne Cant, but as the day went on, Denise Betsema started to nail down her lines and really dial the course in, as did the 777 women's team rider Annemarie Verst. Now, Betsema, who took the front at about the halfway point, would then pick up the pace a little bit, but the errors then would start to add up, and Annemarie Verst was able to reconnect with Betsema. In fact, drive right into the back of her on this very steep uphill embankment off camber section. Fem Van Empel, the under-23 world champion, would catch up with Sanne Cant, and they would have a nice duel for that final spot on the podium. But in the end, it was another win for Denise Betsema. The Palestals and Bingo rider would take the win ahead of Annemarie Verst, and Sanne Cant was able to ditch Fem Van Empel to take third spot. Now in the men's event, huge crash on the start from former under-23 world champion Ryan Kamp, who ultimately would not have any issues after that and would go on to start the next day in Oostmalle. Anyways, that slowed things down at the front a little bit, and it didn't seem like after a bit anyone was going to be able to go for hard enough, for long enough to be able to hold the gap and to take a win. And it could be a sprint finish, although Toon Arts and Laurent Sweck would each show their strength off the front. Neither of them could hold it lap after lap, and they would sit up on the start-finish straight. As soon as they were caught, another attack would go. Sweck, though, was off the front, and Iserbit chased him down. Arts gasped from his efforts a lap before. Well, Iserbit went on to turn the pace up. Sweck couldn't match it. Arts was able to come back to take second spot. Iserbit takes the win. Arts takes second. Sweck has to settle for third spot on the day. It was a really good race. You have to go back and watch it on demand. It's ready for you there. That was the final event of the Ethias Cross Series as well. Now, all right, now on to Oostmalle. Last weekend, like I said, it was gross out, but this weekend, super fast courses, and on Sunday, the weather continued to stay glorious. Shorts and short sleeves again for both the men's and the women's events. On the women's side, Denise Betsema, Sanne Cant, and Inge van der Heijden would trade shots at the front, and at just past the halfway point, Betsema would turn up the dial, dispatching the former under-23 world champion Inge van der Heijden, and shortly after that, Sanne Cant would also come off the pace. Betsema would go on to double up on the weekend. Cant would run for second, and Inge van der Heijden would finish it out in third spot. In the men's race, it was revenge for Laurent Sweck, who would have perfect legs on the day after being super close on Saturday. And to be honest, he was just the best in the day. He was flying. He took over the lead from Quinten Hermans of Tormans CX, who led the race early, and Sweck would just ride solo for much of the day and take the win. Quinten Hermans would confirm his comeback from injury to get another podium finish at the end of this season to get second, and Lars van der Haar would round out a great season, if I don't say so, for the Ballawassa Trek rider to take third spot. Now, lots of big name riders have finished their years, their season, their careers in Oostmalle, and this year, well, it was time for the team captain, or the de facto team captain of the Ballawassa Trek team, Jim Ehrnouts, to finish out his career. He'd finished 10th spot on the day, and I believe that he's going to go on to run a restaurant and a hotel with his wife. So from everybody at GCN, Jim, congrats on a great run and enjoy your retirement. That is the final update of the 2021 cyclocross season. I want to thank everyone who watched with us this year. Thank you to Marty McDonald, who I co-commentate with every single weekend. All the staff at GCN who helped make all this great cyclocross racing available. And to all of you, thank you all for watching again. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Back over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Jeremy, for that and for the entire season. I'm already looking forward to things resuming in September. Now in other news, you'll be very pleased and relieved to know that Davide Rebellin has got himself another contract. So he'll be starting his 29th pro season with the Trofeo Leguaglia on March the 3rd for the work service Marchiol Vega team. And he'll be celebrating his 50th birthday on August the 9th. I mean, he really is the eternal racer, isn't he? On a similar subject, Amati Puraili on Twitter pointed out that at the UAE Tour, Alejandro Valverde of Movistar is racing against 3 riders whose dads also race with Valverde. So David Decker and his dad Eric, Rick Zabel and Eric Zabel, and Riccardo Minali and Niccolo Minali. Now that is a long career, even if it is about to end. Now back to GCN Plus and device compatibility. Now I know that many of you are crying out for more ways of watching on the big screen on top of Chromecast and Apple AirPlay, which is already supported. Well, I've got some very good news for you. The Android TV app is now ready, and you should be able to find that in your app store, or simply go to gcn.eu/Android TV. On top of that, the Samsung TV and Amazon Fire Stick apps are basically good to go. All we're waiting on is approval from Samsung and Amazon respectively, but since this is the first time we've ever done this, we're not exactly sure how long that's going to take. Hopefully, it will just be a couple of days or even less than that, but it might be a bit longer. Beyond that, we are working tirelessly on plenty more, which I will of course keep you informed of in the coming weeks. Now in terms of what racing we've got coming up for you this week, well, the UAE Tour will continue and to be on every single day right through to its conclusion on Saturday, so make sure you don't miss any of that, particularly the mountaintop finishes. And on Sunday, we have Kuurne, Brussels, Kuurne. However, we don't, as things stand, have Omloop Het Nieuwsblad on Saturday. Needless to say, we are extremely disappointed about that, and I'm sure you are too. Now, we've never stated anywhere that we do have the rights to Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Of course we wouldn't, because negotiations were, and in fact still are, ongoing to do with that race. However, we do have the Tour of Flanders this year in most European territories. That one is absolutely guaranteed, so you don't need to panic about that. Right, that is all for this week's Racing News Show. Don't forget, you have only got until the end of February to take advantage of our 50% off promotion of GCN Plus. After that, it's going to return to its full price. All our documentaries, all of the racing that's available where you are, it's an absolute steal even at full price, I've got to say. Either way, I'll see you this time next week on the GCN Racing News Show. Bye for now.